What's up, everybody, and welcome to Assemble Show live here on YouTube. And today we are doing our predictions for this Sunday's AEW All Out pay-per-view with the big return of CM Punk, the man himself, making his return, having his big return match with Darby Allin. I'm very excited. I know a lot of you are too. If you're joining us here live on YouTube, thank you very much for doing so. Being a part of the community, you guys can join as well. If you're checking this out on demand afterwards, youtube.com/assemble show. That's where you are. You can hit the like button, the notification bell, ding dong. How's your mom? Hanging out with CM Punk. Anyways, let's go through, and tonight we are giving you our full predictions breakdown for All Out. I'm very excited about this. The one bit of news that we do have before we get into all of it, one match that I was actually looking forward to was going to be the Pac versus Andrade match, but that has since been canceled due to travel restrictions. Because of that, we are going to have the Women's Battle Royal is actually going to be kicking off All Out. And with that moves it up to the main card, which is still pretty cool. But it does change things up because that Pac versus Andrade match was something that I was going to be kind of looking forward to personally. But hey, stuff happens and we got to roll with it, right, guys? So let's get this thing started and let's kick things off with that. We're going to start off with the actual buy-in. The Casino Royale, the Casino Battle Royale, that is probably going to be kicking things off. They're supposed to be on kind of the pre-show, but now it is going to be on the full card. And for this match, the announced for the Casino Battle Royale, as of right now, as we're recording this, Julia Hart, Big Swole, The Bunny, Thunder Rosa, Nyla Rose, Red Velvet, Tay Conti, Penelope Ford, and Diamante. That's who we've got for this Casino Battle Royale. I'm very excited for this one. A lot of the women are doing a great job. I'm happy that Britt Baker is actually the AEW Women's Champion. She's been doing great work, and she's been having some really good matches along the way with a lot of the women that are going into this Battle Royale, the buy-in. Now, there are some good contenders here for who we could see actually leave here. The matches between Rosa and Baker, they've been incredible. That Lights Out match was fantastic. I definitely see that Rosa could go over in this one if they wanted to do that. There's some that, I would like to see actually, like if they wanted to do like Bunny, I think would be kind of cool if they gave her a little bit more to work with. We did see Red Velvet on the opening of the opening of Rampage on the first episode. And I don't think that they're going to go back to that right away, as they just did that as the main event for Future Feud. So I don't really think that that's going to be the one to go with. What I'd actually like to make prediction for is that we are going to get Ruby Soho, or formerly known as Ruby Riott, from the Riott Squad. That's not a great memory, but I think that we are actually going to get Ruby Soho show up for the buy-in and take on Britt Baker after that. So my prediction is we are actually going to get Ruby showing up, Ruby Soho, Ruby Riott, making her AEW debut here at the buy-in. I think it's a perfect time for her to show up. I think it would obviously make huge noise, especially to kick off the night. If you are going to go this way, you're moving this match up to the main card because of Andrade and Pac are gone. I think it would add even more punch to the show, and it would give fans the feeling that anything can kind of happen here and what we're going to expect for a big night. It kicks it off with a bang. Ton of exposure for all these women in the division. That's what I want to see. I want to see AEW do even more with the women's division. Build them up because they have fantastic roster. They have fantastic women within this division, but I need to see more focus built on it as they go forward. Britt Baker, I think, is great as their AEW Women's Champion. I think she needs to hold on to the title for a while, but I think if you got Ruby coming in, makes that surprise at All Out. It gets a lot of buzz. You can immediately push her on Dynamite and build some of the other women in the division itself. love this match. Love to see it. Ruby is going to be my pick for this one. All right, let's move on to the next match for the card, shall we? This one I'm actually going to go with the Jon Moxley versus Satoshi Hojima match. Now, Moxley for the last year hasn't done a ton in terms of feuds. He's got things going on with the tag division with Eddie Kingston. He's been doing just kind of exhibition matches here and there with New Japan guys. I feel like Mox hasn't had a lot to really sink his teeth into from a long-term storytelling perspective. He's had a little bit here and there, right, for the last year or so. And don't get me wrong, I love Jon Moxley. I want to see him do even more. I want to see him get back into the main event scene, but it's very crowded right now. So Mox doing this match, this New Japan match, I think it's going to be hard-hitting. I think it's going to be bloody. And I think it's just going to be a really just fun, solid, stiff match. Something that Mox really likes to do. It's not going to be a crazy hardcore thing, but Satoshi Hojima is going to bring it. And I think it's just going to be a really good kind of exhibition match for these two to have. Based on this and it kind of just being a one-off, I think that we are actually going to get Jon Moxley is going to go over in this one. I'd kind of put all my confidence points on this to see Jon actually go over. Because why not? My question is always going to kind of be, I wonder where they would go after this with Mox. And what could they actually do? Now, the next match on the card that has me curious, a little puzzled, the Paul White versus QT Marshall. This, I think, is almost like that, I don't know, that showcase match, that kind of just spectacle match that WWE would kind of do, but it's not quite there. It's the first in-ring debut of Paul White, Big Show, coming in, taking on QT Marshall. This one I felt like they built over on Dynamite, and we've had the promos from Paul White. They're good. QT Marshall, I don't really care for that much. I just don't feel like it's going to do too much for this match. It's a one-off, in my opinion. There's not much story built within there. It's kind of just been shoehorned in to get Paul White on the pay-per-view, in my opinion. But I am still excited to be able to see Big Show, Paul White, get in the ring, see how he does. I don't think that this one is going to go very long. I think that we are going to get this in like 5 to 8 minutes tops, where ultimately I think Paul White is going to go over, and he's either going to hit that big fist as his finisher, or he's going to do a choke slam. Maybe Paul White will surprise us and give us a different move when it comes to AEW. I'd like to see him do something other than the giant punch to end things off. But for this one, Paul White, QT Marshall, I got to go with Paul White. It's going to be kind of like that middle of the card match that they need. And it's to bring a couple of more eyeballs and people get familiar because they can say, hey, it's Big Show and he's on pay-per-view. Again, this whole All Out pay-per-view is really booked top to bottom. It's very, very stacked in terms of all the star power. They have literally kind of put everything they got into this. Anything and everybody that is hot, that has a feud, that has something going on, they want to be able to showcase them. But I think Paul White is going over in this one over QT Marshall because I don't care about QT Marshall that much. But that's just Matt. All right, next match on the card that we want to go through is actually going to be Miro versus Eddie Kingston. I have been loving what they've been doing with Miro for the last, I don't know, guys, couple of months now. And I think they've been building him to be this just monster TNT champion. They redesigned the belt the way he wanted to. His promos are excellent. I think that, again, the match with not like Paul White and QT Marshall in that it's like a showcase match. The Miro Eddie Kingston one is going to be hard hitting. I think it's going to be pretty strong, but I don't feel like there's a lot of build to it on the back end where it's been going on for several months or anything. I think it'll still be a really, really strong match between these two, but I don't want to see the title go off of Miro. I don't think Eddie Kingston really needs it. And he doesn't really seem to be playing in that division because he's been working so much with Mox over the last 6 months. And I think that those two should maybe eventually go after the tag titles. but I don't think putting the TNT title on Eddie Kingston is going to do much. I think things with Miro right now are strong, and they can get even stronger as he just shows that he is that much more of a dominant champion. And I want to see Miro go over on this thing because it would be fan-flippin-tastic. So Miro is my pick. I think he goes over clean. I don't think Miro needs to do anything different in this match. Hopefully there are no like explosions that they want to try and do anything kind of crazy and weird. So I think for this one, we just get Miro and he wins dominantly over Eddie Kingston, because I don't think that it will end up hurting Eddie Kingston all that much, to be honest, because he works so closely and he does well with like Mox and that dynamic. I think that you could just have him slide back in on Rampage or Dynamite and working with John Moxley and just kind of all forgotten and moves on to the next thing. All right, guys. Let's switch over to the women's championship match. We got Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, and she is taking on her Statlander. And I am excited for this one. I think that these two are going to put on a really, really terrific match. But like I said at the beginning of the show, I don't think it's time for Britt Baker to lose the title. I think that they need to continue to make her really the center point of AEW's women's division. This has been the problem that I've had with AEW since the beginning, is they've done so much work, obviously, with the men's side of things, with the especially on the top of the card, and they continue to do so. But I feel that the women's division, since AEW started, has been lackluster, and I've been looking for more. I've been wanting more. I've been wanting to see more stars come out of it, and more relatable stars, superstars that and wrestlers that I feel like kind of have an identity or more of that. And I don't feel that the women in AEW up until recently have had enough focus and screen time. There's like 1-2 women's matches on each show, and I get it because you got 2 hours, but now you have an hour with Rampage, you can do more. I want to see them do even more. I don't think it is time to take this title off of Britt Baker, but I think these two will go out. They'll have a 20-25 minute match. It's going to be outstanding. But yeah, I'm still going with Britt Baker is going to hold on to that title and take it off and keep going, and probably go on to a feud with maybe Ruby Soho if she does show up and does win the buy-in. All right, next match on the card that we got to go through, guys, is actually going to be the final fight. MJF versus Chris Jericho. Now, I did put this up in the community poll. 76% of you right now have said that you're voting for Jericho to actually come out as the winner for this match, which is interesting. I've actually flipped back and forth on this, and I'm not too sure where I land. We've had them go through, those 5 matches over on Dynamite week after week, and at the end of it, Jericho lost. And by doing that, you got way more heat and way more on MJF, which is what you wanted. I think by Jericho going through all of that every single week, having all these different types of matches, and then losing at the end, and we've seen this feud go on for almost a year now, where it's felt like it's been done, and they've put more life into it, they've built it back up again, and now we're kind of getting this final fight between MJF and Jericho that I think they're going to go really long for this match. It's really hard to say which way they would go, because I'm always curious what they would do as the next step with either of them. This whole thing is also coming to a point where Jericho is giving us the stipulation that if he loses, he will be done wrestling, and he'll move over to like commentary or do something like that he's hinted to, which is possible because the same time they've talked about JR kind of reducing his role as an on-air commentator. I wonder if when JR's contract comes up, they change his roles and put him into more of a backstage role versus on-air commentary, other than like big special matches, and they slide in Jericho. I'm not totally sold on Jericho on commentary, to be honest. I think he does really good, but he gets to be a little too much for me on just like screaming and shouting out. But it depends on his style for it, because if he's in character on commentary, He's obviously going typically a little bit more heelish. Right now, he's the babyface. I want to see what Jericho could do on commentary. I still want to see it, but I don't know where you would slot him in. Could he possibly replace JR on commentary going forward? Maybe. I'd like to see it, and I think it's just a good way to try it out. It's a tough match, everybody, because Jericho, typical traditional math would show you on wrestling is that Jericho lost those matches. He lost at the very end to MJF. Now they have this final one. You think that the good guy is going to get over. You think that Jericho is actually going to go over in this thing. But I think that they're going to lean on MJF. I think they need to establish MJF as a top heel. And by beating Jericho, definitively beating Jericho, I think that's how you do it. MJF needs that push. He needs that next level because he has finished this feud with Jericho. And if it had ended on the last, series of Dynamite, on that 5th match, I think that MJF would just kind of slide into the next feud. He needs that big pay-per-view win. And I think it would shock a lot of fans too that Jericho would lose. And Jericho's the kind of guy who's going to do good business. He will lose when the story just totally makes sense. So for the story that they're trying to tell here, it's kind of a toss-up, to be honest. I'm going to go with MJF. I'm going to say MJF is going to win. He's going to beat Jericho. They can figure out how to bring him back as an in-ring competitor at some point. It's not that hard. They can write him back into a story somehow. But I like to see MJF get over and then move into something else, like the episode that we talked about the other day about who should CM Punk's first feud be with. And the spoilers, as Matt said that it should be MJF. That's the episode. But go watch it. Support the show. Subscribe to the show. Give it a thumbs up if you guys are here in the stream or you're watching on demand. Consider subscribing to this whole thing because it's a lot of fun. We do predictions here for all major pay-per-views, as well as giving you kind of our weekly stuff on WWE 2K22. And we got you covered for all the wrestling news every single week. So, MJF going over. That's my plug. We don't have sponsors here. I don't have a promotion. So we self-promote. Next match on the card. Steel cage match. Young Bucks. Lucha Brothers. Going over. Who's going to win this thing? Young Bucks, the super elite, have been just running shop on AEW for a long time now, it feels like. They've had the tag titles for quite some time, and this match is cool because it is kind of coming full circle. It's coming full circle with the Young Bucks and the Lucha Brothers having that first initial feud to kick things off in Dynamite when AEW kind of came out for the first time. And their series was really, really good. I have no doubt that this is going to be, for them to be in a cage, I think this could be a 5-star match. I have all the confidence in the world that this thing is going to be hot. It's going to be just killer. These guys are going to take crazy bumps. I'm excited to see what they'll pull off in this thing. The question is, though, is who's going to go over, and can the Young Bucks retain these tag titles? Because then we'll talk about the main event with Kenny Omega and Christian and what could happen there. Because if they drop the tag titles to the Lucha Brothers, you can turn around and do a rematch. AEW doesn't tend to go down that path. They tend to just tell the story and be done with it and move on. I don't know if the Young Bucks necessarily need the tag titles, but what I do want to see actually is I think I would want to see the Young Bucks win and retain the titles over the Lucha Brothers. Lucha Brothers are great, and they could pick up the titles tomorrow, and everything's cool and everyone's going to be happy. They're really, really cool to watch. But I was actually hoping that we would get Jurassic Express and have them overtake the Young Bucks and get that huge, huge moment of defeating the Young Bucks. I think for this one, you're probably still going to want to keep the Elite strong. And I think by doing that, you keep it on the Young Bucks. If not, and they go to the Lucha Brothers, then you can have them go back and forth in a feud, or they're going to want to kind of turn away and move the Young Bucks into something different and put Lucha Brothers and going with Jurassic Express and having them feud over the actual tag titles and open the division a little bit more. I'm not too sure, but I am going to say that for right now, I am going to go with Young Bucks are going to retain this thing, gives them more bragging rights. They can just continue to be crazy heels. And that then leads into one of the main events, the main event for the title anyways, is Kenny Omega versus Christian Cage for the AEW Championship. Christian won the, I was going to say TNA title, but he won the Impact Championship. And by doing so and taking that off Kenny, now they're having a champion versus champion type of deal. And for the AEW title, it's on Kenny right now. I still don't see this thing coming off of Kenny Omega. We got that really cool surprise and shocking win of Christian beating Kenny on Rampage, and I think that they needed that to get a big moment, and they could flip things on a dime. I just don't see it going over to Christian Cage. I think you can do a lot with Christian by putting him on Impact and having him float back and forth. He's a huge name, but the promo and the build to this has been really great. With Hangman Page being out of the picture right now and having Christian come in, at first I wasn't too sure about it. I didn't know how it would land. I didn't think that they were going to be able to pull this off and that I would care. But with Christian winning the title, they've been telling a really cool story with the Elite and with Christian. Jurassic Express is in the mix too. Like, a lot of people, a lot of components are in this mix. So I think that this one could probably break down into a huge schmoz, and you're going to see a lot of the Super Elite get involved. You're going to see a lot of like Jurassic Express get involved, a lot of near falls, a lot of moments where you're going to see Christian almost get that win. But I think at the very end of it, Kenny Omega is still going to retain that title, and I think that he is still going to be holding on and clenching onto that belt, walking out of there, but it needs to set up for Kenny's next big feud. Now, for what we're going to consider the main event of the show, it might not go on last. Kind of curious to see where they will slot this match to, but our main event that we'll consider the main event, CM Punk versus Darby Allin. Man, I'm just going to be sitting there on my couch like this the whole time because, hey, would you look at that? Is it this in or is it this? No. I've been coloring with the kids, so there's pink all over me. I am really going to be watching, like I think most of us, watching super closely at this match and seeing what both of them are going to pull off. I think that there is going to be some kind of just like standing around and soaking it in type of deal. I think Darby is going to fly around the ring for Punk and hit a ton of crazy bumps. Punk doesn't need, in my opinion, to blow the roof off and go insane and showing us anything new. Punk, to me, is here. He's here to stay. And we need to see him do what we know Punk did and can do. He needs to kind of hit all of his main moves, feel it out, brawl a little bit, pull offs, try to get some submissions on Darby. Darby, again, is going to bump and fly, and I think Darby Allin is a great first opponent for Punk to come in and get that exhibition out of the way, that first real appearance of CM Punk, because as we're going for this thing, it's going to be crazy in that arena when Punk's music hits. And to see him fight and wrestle for the first time in 7 years, again, it's just people being in awe of that this is actually happening, that we've been waiting for this to happen, and we're finally going to get it. At the end of this thing, I think for most of us, it's pretty clear. I think that we are going to get CM Punk wins. I think he wins clean. He's going to hit a GTS, and we're going to get a flying elbow drop off the top rope. And I think Punk is going to win very clean over Darby Allin, and it will be just a face versus face finish. Darby kind of rolls out of the ring, where they'll shake hands at the end of the thing, and then Punk can move on to his, next feud, his real feud, and whoever that will be. He has to win this debut match. I don't think that with it being in Chicago, neither of them are going to get booed. I think there's just going to be just too much excitement in the air, and fans are just going to be so pumped that they're getting this match. What I don't want to see happen is that as we go through and Punk moves on from Darby Allin, that we see Punk in a series of exhibition matches. Punk needs to start wrestling, I think, on Dynamite. He needs to give that live crowd, the weekly crowd, something to work with by showing up. Put him in some tag matches if you want to. I can easily see them going down a path, though, of he beats Darby Allin, and then either at the end of that match, there's a run-in, and Punk and Darby take on and take down whoever is doing the interference. That setting up tag matches between Darby and Punk versus whoever. They could totally do that. That eases Punk into it, gets fans excited because they can see him wrestle. Darby's wrestling, like, it's just good stuff. So I think they could go down that path a little bit more long term. But I think that this match, they come out clean, and then they've got to move on to Punk's first real feud within AEW. The question is, who is that going to be? So that moves us on, everybody, to our kind of next level predictions. What we're going to see out of this that's going to really shock us, because the card itself for All Out is fantastic in my opinion. I think that this is top to bottom a solid card, regardless of who we might see and potential surprises and all of that. CM Punk is like the big surprise here. And if we didn't have Punk in all of this, we'd still be in for a killer show. So the question is going to be for everybody, who do we see? What could we see as potential extra surprises? Now, before we get into all of that, again, I do need you guys to go ahead and try and hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you want, and support the channel. Become community members as well as another way you can support the show, or just hang out and watch and chit chat in the chat with me, because it's very, very fun. I love being able to do the live streams with you. We'll be doing more of them as we continue to grow here on the show, but I'm excited that you are all here. I am interested to see what they would do with Sting. Could we get Sting versus Punk at some point? It's possible. Sting and Darby. Darby turns on Sting, maybe. I don't know. But they are building Darby up to be a huge piece of their franchise overall. When Tony Khan and CM Punk did their press conference thing at the end of Punk's first debut, they were talking about that, about like why Darby, and Tony Khan made a reference to it and just being like, Darby's great. He's growing a ton. They're kind of like all behind him and everything. And he's doing such great work and probably fantastic to work with. Hence, like, Punk is working with him for his first time. So, extra predictions. What else could we see when it comes to All Out? I already said that we could see Ruby Soho show up. I think that's pretty much a lock. I don't know if there are any real defined locks for this thing. So Ruby Soho is my one prediction on the women's side of things. She'll come into that casino battle royale and win it. If she doesn't, then I'd like to see Ruby show up in the Britt Baker match and post-match beatdown kind of type of deal. That's where I want to see Ruby show up if she is going to. That would be really cool. The other names that are out there, one that is AEW that isn't doing anything on the card for Sunday is Malachi Black. We don't have a match for Malachi as we're recording this. That could change, but Malachi Black, I think, needs to show up at All Out. He needs to take down the next person and to set up that next feud. One that I could see him go with to set up the next feud for Malachi, I think that kind of a layup and an easy one to get them going and they could fight for 1, 2, 3 months is Malachi versus Jon Moxley. Those two could have hard-hitting matches. They could really tell great stories. You've got Eddie Kingston in the mix as well, so you could make some story threads where you can have Malachi take out Eddie Kingston. You've got Jon Moxley in there trying to take down Malachi. And even if Malachi should go over because they want to keep him extremely strong, you can have him take down Mox, and it doesn't really hurt Mox that badly, in my opinion. So I think that would be relatively easy if they want to go down that path. Malachi Black, I think, is going to make an appearance on the show. Now, the next prediction that we have, there's so many potentials out there of what we could see and who could show up for all of this. I don't want AEW to kind of like throw everything out there, because I mean they could, and it will be just the craziest pay-per-view I think we've seen since like Attitude Era if they just keep chucking every surprise after every match. I don't think they want to overkill it, because you want to be able to spread some surprises out. If you do it all one shot, I mean, it does push the influence of like, hey, you order our pay-per-views because you never know what's going to happen. But I do think you want to have something to work with on Dynamite, Rampage, to get more and more fans to show up to watch live TV product. So at the same time, let's talk about Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson has been all but confirmed for like a September showing up for, I was going to say WWE, for AEW. And that has since changed. And the rumors and speculation going around right now is that they're moving that up sooner. And it sounds like it's going to be at All Out. Now, what do they do with Bryan Danielson? I think that there is so much happening at All Out. I don't even really know where you could slot him in that would make sense. The only thing I can see them doing potentially is having Bryan literally show up and not do anything crazy, but just his music hits and he comes out and addresses the fans and says that he's all elite. Maybe they want to have somebody then do just a traditional run in and try to take him out, and they could set up a feud for Bryan that way. It's a very interesting one that I don't see very clean cut because Bryan is so over as a babyface. I don't know what you could do with him at All Out that would make sense. Maybe you do want him to be heel. You do have a lot of big faces in the company right now. When you have guys like Mox, you've got, I mean, the tag division is stacked. You do have Christian. You've got CM Punk. You've got Paige when he's back. You do have quite a few baby faces. Maybe you tease Bryan going to be a heel, but you're not going to get him instant heel heat coming into AEW. It's not going to happen. So it's going to be very, very curious to me what they can end up doing with Bryan. Do I think it's a 100% lock that we see Bryan at All Out? No. But if they do it, heck, you know what? Let's say that they actually tease. I'm looking at the match card and I'm wondering where he could fit in. Because I also have questions regarding Adam Cole. I think that, you know what? They could maybe do something with MJF. If MJF is not going to go down the path of Punk, you could maybe do something where you bring Bryan Danielson in, and after the Jericho match, you can have Bryan's music hit, whatever track they're going to use for that, and they could do Bryan versus MJF, because I think they put Jericho off TV, put him on commentary, and use Jericho to put over Bryan even more. Not that he needs to get over. It's very tricky to me. Maybe you guys have a better idea of how they could do it, but I don't think that we could get anything other than Bryan just kind of showing up and saying hi, like Punk, basically. Not that that would be bad. It would still be amazing. The next one, the one kind of wild card in all of this that I'm really, really interested to see if this happens or not. Adam Cole, baby. I've watched Adam Cole from, ROH and, his New Japan Bullet Club run. And I followed him, not crazy hardcore, but I followed him throughout. And what he did in NXT, and basically was the face of NXT for, the last, year to 2 years of NXT was him at the top. I think, and him being officially a free agent, he's not at WWE. He didn't show up on Raw or SmackDown or Raw again. It doesn't seem like that's happening. I think that Adam Cole would want, if he wants to get and stay with wrestling, I think that he has so much freedom and opportunity if he goes over to AEW, because it could afford him the options to work in Japan, to work at Impact if he wanted to. And he could be at the top of the card sliding into AEW. This is where it gets really interesting, but I would love it. What I kind of envisioned as a Adam Cole reveal is, I think this is what I would do. If I booked it, I would have Britt Baker win. I would have then not even later in the night, but maybe like after the next match, I would have Britt Baker backstage and giving a post-celebration promo where she's talking about how she won and maybe she's all cut up and everything, and just talking about how she won and all this stuff. Then I would have not Adam Cole show up in frame, but I would have however they do it, I would have Britt Baker stop talking mid-sentence and just look off screen and just kind of look and smile, or say something like, "Oh, you're going out there?" And then the crowd goes insane, and you could have Cole just walk out and huge music, huge pop, and just do it like Punk style, and everyone will lose their minds because then it's instant. Or you have Adam Cole interfere in a match. If you have Cole interfere, I think Cole should go right to the top, and you put Cole up there against Kenny Omega. Because if he defeats Christian Cage, Kenny Omega can get on the mic afterwards and just start going off on the mic, running down that he's beaten everybody. You can have the Super Elite out there celebrating with Kenny Omega. You could have, Christian taken out. You can have Jurassic Express taken out, and they're all at the top of the mountain. And then you can have Adam Cole's music hit and have him just do Adam Cole, baby, boom on the top of the stage. Doesn't even have to get into their face. But if they could just end All Out with the last thing you see is a standoff between Kenny Omega and Adam Cole, and leave it at that, and I think you would have a home run no matter what you do. Because the end of AEW All Out, they need something really strong. If Punk goes on last, it's incredibly strong, but it doesn't give you that. It gives you a very satisfying ending if they put Punk on last, and I don't think they will. I think they'll put the title as the last match, and if they put the title as the last match on the card, Kenny retaining to me doesn't give me that holy shit moment. It gives me satisfied, like, okay, cool, they're gonna maybe continue a story beat, or where are they gonna go next, or that was a great show. But you want that lasting impression to me. You want to have this crazy good moment, shocking moment at the end of this, so that fans are gonna tune in next week and tune into Dynamite to see what the hell happens next. And I think you pull that off with either a Bryan Danielson at the end of All Out, or an Adam Cole. Right now, I kind of lean towards Cole because of the relationship with the Elite and all of that history. I think that they could pull off something really, really cool. So ladies and gentlemen, that's our predictions for AEW All Out this weekend. Let me know your thoughts. Who is going over? Who's winning? Are we going to get Adam Cole, Ruby Soho, Bryan Danielson? What could we see from All Out? Let me know in the comments below your predictions for the show. Thank you so much for watching here on Assemble. I'm Matt, and as always, thank you all for assembling with us. See ya! We are